Well, number one, I think you're absolutely right, Colin. They are stuck with him because of the contract that he got in June of 2019. You know, the salary cap hit, if you get rid of him next year and the following year, are huge. And so they are stuck with Carson Wentz. So they need better play from him. But you're right. You know, for you to get better play for your quarterback, you need him to play better, number one. But you also need the pieces around him to be better. And Andy Reid always used to say, if you want to win football games, you have to be able to win in the trenches. That means the offensive and defensive line. And what you've seen from the Eagles and the 6 sacks last night is a lack of healthy bodies in front of Carson Wentz and a lack of continuity and communication with those guys in front of him. And it's just hard to play quarterback in the NFL if you're going to get sacked and pressured and hit all the time. It makes you overthrow guys. It makes you not be able to go through your reads. And I think that's all the things that we've seen through Carson Wentz, inconsistent play all season long.
So what do we do with Doug Peterson? We know he had a good month in the playoffs. We know most players like him. We know he beat Belichick head-to-head. That doesn't mean he's a great coach, but it means he's capable of greatness. What do we do with Doug Peterson? You stay with him, you move off him. What do they say in Philadelphia?
Well, the people in Philadelphia are not very happy with Doug because they're trying to figure out what's going on with the Jalen Hurts situation and why do you keep bringing him into the game or not leaving him in for a series and then you take him out, and what's going on with the offense. And really, when you look at this offense, it really hasn't had any rhythm at all. We saw that at the beginning of the football game last night. 5 straight series, 3 and out. I mean, it's just hard to win a game when you start that slow. And then really, when you think about it, that 6th series, they did something that a lot of people have been calling for. Allow Carson Wentz to roll out. Allow Carson Wentz to run the ball a little bit. And what we saw yesterday, when he runs the ball, he seems like he gets more involved in the game. He gets more in tune. I mean, there are some guys that believe and think that once they get hit, now they're getting into the flow of the game. And it seems like that's what Carson does. And I think Doug Peterson, who usually has a good pulse of his football team, a good pulse of his players, should know that. But this year, it seems like he hasn't been able to find his rhythm as a play caller. And so that's why a lot of people in Philadelphia are very upset with Doug Peterson.
You know, it's interesting. Philadelphia is, for a big city, it's very much a working class town. It's one of the places where sports talk radio gets huge ratings. It's Philadelphia is tough. I remember when I used to go to the airport in Philadelphia, it looks tough. It feels tough. You see tough guys at the airport. And some of this, I think that with Carson Wentz is he's got this loud sports radio audience ripping him. The newspapers, you know, there's 2 or 3 newspapers, they're battling and ripping him. He's got a statue of Nick Foles. They draft Jalen Hurts. He's got a backup quarterback complex. Just talk about having played in Philadelphia. There had to have been players when you were there, Brian, that were eaten alive by the media and the toughness. And it's hard. Like Boston and New York media are rough. I mean, I've listened to the sports radio. It is hard. And I think is it fair to say, you played in it, maybe the noise of Philadelphia is in Wentz's head?
You know, I know Philadelphia has kind of gotten a bad rap as far as the fans and sports radio and things like that. But to me, they've always been fans that are certainly passionate about their team. They're fans that are very knowledgeable. And in the end, what they want to see is you go out there and work your butt off and find a way to win. And what we've seen from this team and Carson Wentz in particular is that we know he's putting in the work, but the performance on the field has been lacking. And that's why people are questioning Carson Wentz. And for a guy that has gotten paid $100 million guaranteed last June, the number 2 overall pick, he should be above all of that. He should be ready to go out there and find a way to win. To me, he has to be the reason why the Eagles win football games, and not listening to the noise is part of that as well. And I know he has said in the past that he doesn't listen to the radio stations and doesn't read the paper, but I know the pressure has to be on him because the pressure in the city to carry a football team that at one point in the season had lost 9 of its 11 starters when you pencil them in for the beginning of the season, and be able to carry a team where that they've lost a lot of consistency across the board with injured players, it has been hard. But that's why you get paid the big bucks. And that's why you're on the big stage in this position. So Carson Wentz has to be able to shoulder that a little bit better. And at the end, he has to perform much better. I was on earlier with Nick Wright and First Things First, and he said something that I think is very true. You don't go from being an MVP candidate to one of the worst quarterbacks in football because of the people around you. Maybe you drop a couple tiers down, but you don't go to being one of the worst. And Carson has to find a way to get out of that cellar, get out of that worst situation, even though the things around him haven't been very good.
So we've been talking about this. If you look at Tom Brady's numbers today, they're actually not bad. 28 TDs, 11 picks, 95 passer ratings, 64% completion percentage. He's basically, when he went to Tampa, all we kept saying is, listen, if he can be as productive as Jameis without the mistakes, they're going to make the playoffs. That's exactly what he is. So when I look at him this morning, I'm like, it's kind of, in the moment, it feels like they're awful. But big picture, they were lousy against the Saints and lousy against the Bears. But, they score 28 a weekend. What has been your takeaway of the Brady transition, New England to Tampa? Where are you sitting with it today?
For anybody else, we would give them time to make that transition complete. For anybody else, we would say, okay, it's going to take a year just to get used to guys. And that's even with training camp and mini camps and things like that. But when you're the greatest of all time, we're saying that should happen automatically. All we have to do is add great weapons around you and a new coach, and that mix should work. And we've seen that at this age and with the lack of continuity around him, it's been a struggle for Tom Brady. The one thing that I've always believed in, if you want to help an aging quarterback or a quarterback that's struggling, give them a little bit of a run game. And when you look at the last few weeks, as far as what Tampa was doing with Ronald Jones, they haven't been able to run the football because they've gotten behind early on, and the willingness to commit to it hasn't been there either. So I would love to see Ronald Jones get some more carries. I would love to see if Leonard Fournette, who is a volume back, get some more carries down there as well. You have to find a way to protect Tom Brady, and I don't know that giving him the reins, all the reins to the offense is the answer in Tampa Bay at this point.
Yeah. By the way, I said about Kansas City, there's so many things I like about them. I mean, we've seen teams we think are going to be a dynasty. The 49ers with Harbaugh, we thought they were going to last forever. Seattle, Pete Carroll, Legion of Boom, and it didn't last. But I look at Kansas City and I think, man, I love Andy Reid, and I love their GM, Brett Veach. And, man, I love Mahomes. I guess I worry if they can pay offensive linemen once they pay them. But they score so fast. They're so dramatic. The only thing I worry about Kansas City, and I've compared them, Brian Westbrook joining us, to the Warriors when they had KD, Steph, and Clay. When you score so brilliantly, dramatically, and quickly, sometimes it's hard to be urgent. It feels like you can just flip a switch. Did you ever play on a team like that? Have you ever seen a team that is so offensively competent that they don't play with a great deal of urgency on certain downs, halves, and games?
We had a team in 2004, the first year that we had T.O., and we were just one of the best offenses in the league, and we had the ability to score at will. We were putting up points. And the thing that coaches and players have to always do in those situations is challenge themselves to do different things. How many touchdowns can you score? How many routes can you run perfectly? It's always a challenge to be perfect in those situations. And it's more so an inner challenge. It's not necessarily what the team across from you is going to do to try to stop you. It's more so an inner challenge to try to push yourself to do more. And I think that's the same thing that Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and that entire staff there has to find a way to figure out, because you're right, they can throw up 28 points in a quarter or certainly in a half, and it seems like their job is done. But what has happened over the course of these last few weeks is that teams have come back a little bit and have scored points against that defense, and then they got to kind of jumpstart things to get going again. So, it's all about the sense of urgency. It's all about challenging yourself. Andy Reid knows how to do it. Now it's all about going out there and trying to get it done on the football field and functioning that way. I would love, and again, as a running back, I feel like I'm always saying this. I certainly have said it about Tampa Bay a bunch. I would love to see their running backs be able to run the ball a little bit more. That's going to keep you on the field a little bit more offensively, allow your defense to rest. And you're talking about when teams are coming back at you a little bit scoring the ball, it also keeps the ball out of their hands. And so I would love for Andy Reid, who it's hard to say that you take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, but every now and then it'd be nice to get some runs in there as well.
Good stuff.